Welcome to JLive. I'm Laura Mandel, JArts Executive Director, and it's great to be with you for JLive, our JArts virtual series of bite-sized conversations about Jewish life and art with the best artists with Boston connections. Today, I'm with animator Alex Salsberg. Welcome, Alex.
Hey, nice to be here, Laura.
I'm so happy to be with you and to say that you were one of our first JLive guests who I actually met through this program. So it's really cool to be with you today.
I'm honored.
So, absolutely, it's awesome. So to kick us off, let's look at some of your work, because when I saw your animation work, I said we need to talk. So we are going to start with a video clip that you made in 2018 called Class of 1984.
So when you knew my mom in high school, did anything witch-ish, warlocky happen?
Well, Mikey, we all know high school. This is a crazy time. Well, but let me tell you about it. The 80s were a different time. It was a more dangerous time.
Don't eat that. It has raw eggs. I don't even care.
I was the guy. I was the most dangerous guy in school. I was a real badass in those days. All the girls wanted me, but I didn't want all the girls. I just wanted one of them. She goes by the name of your mother. The problem is, a girl like your mom would never go out with a guy like me. And besides, at that point, she was going steady with the captain of the safety team. Mikey, I was devastated. I remember it was that very day that I
Curse the school? Doing them all to a painful death?
What kind of question is that? I devoted my entire life to safety, just in the hopes that someday a girl like your mom would love me.
I love that, Alex. It's hilarious.
Thanks.
And there's so much to unpack. And I just want to start with the fact that as a graduate of Newton South High School, I think it's hilarious that you have Newton West in there.
Yeah.
But, tell us, what did we just see? What is this?
Oh God. All right. Well, so that's an excerpt from a film I made a few years ago, Class of '84, which is actually, it was the first independent film I had made in a while, and it was characters that I'd created in college. And the whole film is like, I guess I would kind of call it like a Jewish-ish Halloween comedy. So it has a lot of like horror movie tropes. It's not actually scary. I don't think I know how to make something scary, but it's it's about a kid trying to figure out a curse on his mom's high school, because every time he wants to do something fun, like buy a motorcycle, his mom says, no, someone from my high school died doing that. You can't do that. And so he's investigating the curse, and that's why he's talking to that guy, played by Jonathan Katz, actually, from Newton as well. So yeah.
A lot of Newton connections.
Yeah.
All right. So since you're talking about a high school experience, I want to know about your childhood and growing up. And I actually have to say, I laughed the other day when you told me I liked Hebrew school as a kid, because those are words I have never before heard spoken. So tell us about your love of Hebrew school, or at least where that came from, and how you came to be who you are.
That was off the record. No, I when I got a little older, I think Hebrew school was a chore, like for many other people. But when I was a younger kid, I remember I liked I felt it was kind of nerdy, but I liked learning like how to read another language. I loved like the Torah stories. Like I liked learning about Moses and all that stuff. And so yeah, I really got into it. Like I remember I think I drew a Haggadah for our family when I was 8 and made little like puppets. So I think I really liked it. I think it felt, even though, I grew up in Wayland and there were a lot of other, friends of mine were Jewish. It still felt like a cool, special thing that I was learning this other stuff. So yeah, all right, I'll say it. I liked Hebrew school.
Own it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you also told me that when you were a kid, you really wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist. And I know that we share a love of Calvin and Hobbes. So
Yes.
tell us about how you took this dream of being a newspaper cartoonist and landed as an animator. Like, what did that path look like?
Yeah, it was pretty linear actually. So yeah, when I was really young, I just always loved cartoons and illustration. When I was really young, I think I before I knew really what comics were, I think I would have envisioned I might be like an illustrator or children's book writer when I grew up, or I called them books then. But yeah, and then I then got into, I remember my dad just like bought me a Garfield book one day, and I got into Garfield and Calvin Hobbes and the Far Side, and I was obsessed. I had like stacks and stacks of all those books, and I read the newspaper comics every day. um, and then animation kind of was sort of a natural thing from that, because a lot of these comics had crossover with animation. I was really into the Garfield show, and then I also loved Looney Tunes and all the Disney stuff. And when I got a little older, The Simpsons and things like that. And so, yeah, I think as a young kid, I already started like experimenting with animation, which is so easy now with iPhones and stuff. And we had to like figure out like pushing start and stop on a camera, and then weird VCR tricks and things like that. And then I started taking a few animation classes when I was a teenager. And at that point, I was pretty sure that's what I wanted to do. So I went to college for it and haven't really stopped.
It's awesome. All right, so thinking about that trajectory and thinking about sort of your family story, let's watch another excerpt from a piece you made called The Focus Group, which is a web short you actually made about Passover.
Yes. Yeah. Is there anything you want me to introduce before? Should we watch? Up to you.
Sure, tell us what we're about to watch.
Well, I guess you kind of covered it. Yeah, it's something from 2011 that I made just for the web. It's actually a sequel to a cartoon about Hanukkah. And the idea of the series is there's a man whose job it is to pitch these Jewish holidays to go on the calendar, but he always has to compete with the other holidays on the calendar.
That's great. Let's watch it.
And the Easter Bunny brings the eggs to deliver to all the good little boys and girls.
So Pharaoh ordered that every baby be put to death. Oh, God. And Moses strangled the Egyptian to death. And the rivers turned scarlet with blood. And their skin broke out in monstrous boils. Every firstborn son, that's you, Jimmy, was slain by the angel of death, except those that slaughtered baby lambs and smeared the blood on their houses.
Mr. Johnson, you need now.
Not until I finish the story.
I'm so hungry.
Okay, fine. Snack on some horseradish.
And here he is!
I'm opening the door so a ghost can drink our wine. I hear they both have scavenger hunts.
I can't find it. I can't find it.
I feel like that is so just perfectly accurate. Tell
Yeah.
us more about the experience of making this.
Yeah, that one was so fun to make. Like the other one, although it's much shorter. That was actually most of that one that you saw. Class of '84 is about 15 minutes long, but that one just kind of came from, along with the Hanukkah one. It was just kind of playful, like sort of. I guess the way I show my love for these Jewish holidays, and I love Hanukkah and I love Passover. And as a kid, as a Hebrew school nerd, I liked like the Passover story. But I think it is just funny when you think about it, how sort of maybe it's the Old Testament stuff. It is very very dark when you think about it. Whereas I guess I just was thinking about like Easter, where also I think could be a scary story for kids, but for kids they kind of focus on the rabbit, as far as I know. So I think it's funny, and it may be kind of cool about Judaism that we don't really sugarcoat the story for kids. And I just think there's a lot of humor there. So that one I really just got to play, and the guy who voices that guy, his name is Ben Sloan. He's just a very funny voice actor who I've worked with a bunch, and he improvises a lot. So a lot of what he improvised made it in. Like when he has the frogs on his face, that's because he just started making that noise at one point. And so I just decided, all right, well, then he has like frogs and locusts on his face. And then also when he says, you know, the firstborn son, that's you, Jimmy. He added the "that's you, Jimmy," which is, I wish I had written that. I think that's so genius. So yeah, I really, the experience of making that was very playful, kind of like, I guess like a love letter to those holidays in a sense, but in a twisted way.
I think that's awesome. And I love that somebody put in the chat here that the joke is actually that every Jewish holiday is the same. They tried to kill us, we survived, we eat. And I feel like
Right,
you encapsulated that perfectly.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know about anyone else. I'd be curious to do a poll of like American Jewish households or Boston Jewish households. Like, how often is the afikomen in the piano bench? Because I feel like that was like every other year in our home.
How did you know that? Were you in
Yeah.
my house at Passover?
Right, exactly.
It's so great. Okay, so going back a minute to sort of your trajectory as an animator,
Yeah.
you said that your first moment when you sort of knew this was your path was when you had a video go viral, which is kind of amazing. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so it's so funny. I actually just got a comment on the YouTube page of this morning, which is like a nice little reminder. But when I was a freshman in college, this wasn't even for an animation class, so I hadn't taken any college animation classes yet. I was not particularly good at animating yet, but just for like a little side project for the class, I made a video about like men's room etiquette, and I think at the time I sort of was into stand-up comedy, and sort of just so I narrated it myself into a terrible microphone, like, oh, what's up, is very Seinfeldy, like, what's the deal with men's rooms, and like, you know, where to stand in the urinal, and like the different like automatic sinks and flushers, and just like bits about all that. And I animated it and I uploaded it. Believe it or not, this was 2005. YouTube wasn't around yet when I uploaded it. It was a few months before YouTube. So there were all these other video sites where like Newgrounds, and I think like Funny or Die, places like that. And if anyone remembers, and I uploaded it, and I was 18. It got like millions of views. It won like these online awards. There was one website that just like sent me $1,000.
Randomly. They were just like,
yeah,
you won,
well,
here's money.
pretty much. Yeah, I think it was Newgrounds, but yeah, it was really cool. And it got really positive feedback at the time, which is, I think interesting. I think that wouldn't happen now. Not because I think parts of it are probably still funny, but I think the expectation of quality in an online video is a lot more like professional. I think now all the comments would just be like, the animation's not very good, but no one really cared back then. Everyone was just like hungry for a funny internet cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty amazing to think about what you've talked about, how the technology has changed so much in the time you've been doing this. And
Yeah.
somehow you've been incredibly successful. I mean, it sounds like you're working constantly, and your company is called PokeGravity, correct?
Close, PokeGravy.
Oh,
which
sorry.
Actually, I can use that to kind of come full circle on my
Yeah.
narrative a little, because when I was in third grade, I created a comic strip that I intended to be in the newspaper called Poke and Gravy, about a porcupine named Poke and a turkey named Gravy. And I drew that pretty consistently all the way through high school, into college. In high school, I even drew it daily and like posted it online. So I was really like I'm a newspaper cartoonist, or at that point, like a web cartoonist. And then, so I had a URL for it, pokegravy.com. And then, so when I shifted into doing like freelance work, I just kept using that website. It's still my website. And I just was like, all right, well, then I guess my company name should be PokeGravy.
It's perfect. So tell us about, what are you working on these days, or what kinds of projects are you doing regularly?
Yeah, great question. I kind of, the projects I do fall into, so I do animation full-time for clients, and the projects I do fall into 4 kind of distinct categories. I do stuff that's kind of like educational or informative. So I guess a recent example would be I did something for like a medical company about you know, a new medicine that they have, and it's for patients to watch in order to like learn about the side effects and things about the, you know, illness it treats and stuff. Sorry that I'm being vague, it's like under NDA. But and then another category is I'll do shorts. Sometimes for me, like Class of '84, the focus group, when I have time, hard to find time. And sometimes for clients. So I did like a short about a little robot for like a artificial intelligence company. And then I do a lot of like corporate advertising. So some of that can be very dry, like just little icons moving around the screen about like a cybersecurity company. And sometimes it can be really fun. Like I did an ad for the paint bar in Newton, where, you know, I animated the owners and had fun characters painting and all kinds of stuff. And then my favorite thing to do, which I'm actually about to start a really big project on, which I also can't say yet, I apologize, is I love doing music videos. That's like one of my favorite things to do. I've done probably like at least a dozen music videos at this point. And some of them have been for like kids. So I did a bunch of music videos for like a Spanish education company. I've done stuff for, you know, like indie artists. I did a video for Billy Ray Cyrus and another one for Utkarsh and Budkar. So it's just my favorite. I just love doing that. And I'm about to start a really big music video project. So I'm very, very excited.
That's awesome. That's so much fun. So this is a very specific question in our chat, but I want to ask you this because I find that oftentimes people don't understand how time consuming animation is and therefore how expensive it is. And somebody said, what is the cost to animate a 2-minute piece? Because I appreciate how much time and energy it takes. I think the average person doesn't really understand what it takes to create an animation. Tell us a little bit about that, and not just the direct cost, but really what that process is like.
Yeah, so I'm, you know, I'll get back to cost. I'm actually happy to be like somewhat transparent about that. But you know, I'm independent, meaning that I'm doing a lot of times start to finish work for people. So I'm, in addition to animating, often like writing the script. I'm, you know, coordinating with voice actors to record. I'm doing the storyboard, which is essentially again, to bring it full circle, kind of like a comic strip that plans out the animation. And then I'm often directing the animation as well. So I do usually hire a team of like generally between 1 and 5 people to help me animate. And I direct that team. So I'm sending them all the designs and all that. And then editing that all together with the sound and the music. And the music is actually often done, including in the shorts you just saw by my brother, Adam Salsberg. And so all of that means that, like, you know, there's a big scope of work. So in terms of price, it really depends on what kind of animation. So if you were hiring like one animator to do maybe just like a small corporate video, you know, a minute of animation might be between like $1,000 and $2,000 for that minute of animation. If you're talking about like a more complicated, like polished, like thing with sound and music and everything, it could be, you know, anywhere between like 3,000 and 8,000 for a minute. And again, that's for the smaller studios. If you were to hire, you know, a bigger studio or like a movie studio, it's going to be way, way more. I can't speak to exactly how much. But yeah, it really depends. But generally, and everyone's different, but generally, I quote people very specific to the project because there's just a lot of variables. Like something with 3 main characters is harder to make than something with 1 main character. The color and everything. There's just so many factors. But generally, like anywhere I'd say between 1,000 and, you know, 10,000 for a minute of animation from me, which I know is a wide range. But there's just a lot of factors.
Yeah, no, but it's really interesting to hear because I have such a deep appreciation for animation because someone even asked you do the drawing. I mean, it must take you hours alone just to think about the drawing, the shapes of things.
Yeah, to answer that question, I do so much drawing. The animation itself is many drawings. If you think of like a flip book, so you know, there's shortcuts you can take. So when you saw that scene in class 84, if it's a close-up, might be one drawing for the head and then like 20 drawings for the mouth that flip through while the head stays still. But yeah, it's still so much drawing. And then in addition to the drawing during animation, which I usually split with a team, we got to design all the characters and do the storyboards, which is usually, I usually do all of that for the most part. So yeah, it's a lot of pencil mileage, as we call it.
I love it. And I actually, there's another question in the chat that I want to pose to you before we close out, which is, do you teach animation? And I know the answer is yes, but the specific question is, are there any programs or schools in the Boston area that you could recommend for a 17-year-old? Tell us a little bit about what you've taught and other programs that you might recommend, or if you have opportunities.
Yes. So in terms of for that age group, I don't know if you're talking about for college. I actually was an adjunct professor and still will likely do it again at Lesley University, and before that Mount Ida University, which is not around anymore. And Lesley has a great animation program. From what I've heard, Mass Art has a great animation program, and then also SMFA, School of Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts, has a pretty good animation program as well. I know people who teach at all of those, really great friends of mine. And then I've also taught young kids. So I've taught, I had a business for a while, and during COVID, this kind of went virtual, but I was going around to different like after school programs and different rec departments, offering just little 1-hour workshops for kids aged 5 and up, which was super fun. And then in terms of classes for teenagers, if you're not talking about college, if you're talking about high schoolers, don't know. The only one I can think of is I think Digital Media Academy, and Filmmakers Collaboration is another one I think that has classes, but I can't vouch as specifically for what they have right now.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, so before we close out with your reel, to get even a better sense of who you are, tell us a little bit about your reel. What are we about to see? Yeah,
so I wanted to share my reel at the end because this really represents my current work. And as I was thinking about like, what this represents, so a reel is, as a company, that just is a quick 1-minute way of showing like what I do and the variety of what I do. And this one is very new, and it's the music was done also by my brother, Adam Salsberg. I think when I watched this reel, I realized like a lot of my recent work I've really been embracing, and you saw my older work, I guess I went this way too, but really embracing even more, I guess I would call it weirdness, like in the way that things move, and just, I think I've gotten maybe a little more experimental the last few years. And so I don't know, I'm not sure why. I'll have to like think about it and analyze, but definitely I think you'll see in this reel, there's just a little bit more like weird and interesting movement that I've been playing with, while still keeping it in a very like cartoony, silly realm. So yeah, enjoy.
Cool. All right. And before we close out, I will just say, for anybody interested in seeing more of Alex's work, as I see in the chat, his website is now in the chat. And if you want to connect with him around any work, I'm sure you can do that through his website.
Yes, you can. There's an email on there. And I'm also on Instagram if anyone wants to connect on there.
Awesome. All right, Alex, this has been wonderful and so much fun. Thank you. We're going to close out with your reel, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was great. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this.